Hello and welcome to the presentation video of results from Ireland's Labour Force Survey, or LFS, for Q2 2026. The LFS is a household survey carried out by the Central Statistics Office and is the official source for employment and unemployment estimates in Ireland. The official labour market classification of respondents to the survey is based on International Labour Organization, or ILO, concepts and definitions. And you can find out more information about the survey from our website or by contacting us at labour@cso.ie. The published infographic for Q2 is shown in this slide and presents the core indicators from the LFS for the quarter. The employment rate for those aged 15 to 64 was 74.3%. That's down 0.4 percentage points from Q2 2025. The unemployment rate for those aged 15 to 74 was 5.1%, up 0.3 percentage points since last year. The participation rate for those aged 15 and over was 66%. That's down 0.4 percentage points on last year. The annual change in the labour force by age groups is shown on the right. It shows that there's been a positive growth in the labour force among older age cohorts, with the largest increase among those aged 45 to 54, increasing 28,600. At the same time, there has been a decline in the labour force participation among younger age groups, with the largest decline in volume terms among the 35 to 44-year-olds, down 10,100. Looking now at the 4-year seasonally adjusted trend in employment, unemployment and those not the labour force by ILO definition. The estimated number of people in employment in Q2 2026 stood at more than 2.83 million. That's up 19,500 or 0.7% from Q1 2026 and up 238,400 or 9.2% in 4 years. The seasonally adjusted number of people who are not in the labour force also increased over the 4 years, up 96,500 or 6.6%. However, it declined in the most recent quarter by 2,700 or 0.2% to 1,553,300. The number of persons classified as unemployed increased by 30,600 or 26.5% over the 4-year period, but declined by 1,100 or 1.1% in the last quarter to 104,200. And this represents a seasonally adjusted unemployment rate of 4.9%. Focusing now on the results for employment in Q2. The estimated number of people in employment was 2,839,300, an increase of 21,200 or 0.8% compared with Q2 2025. The estimated total number of hours worked per week in Q2 2026 was 89 million hours. That's unchanged when compared to Q2 2025. While employment increased 0.8%, the total employment rate per person aged 15 to 64, shown on the chart, declined 0.4 percentage points from 74.7% in 2025 to 74.3% in Q2 2026. The employment rate for females and males, also shown on this chart, declined 0.3% and 0.5 percentage points to 70.7% and 78% respectively. The chart here shows a change in employment by age groups, and it shows that there's been a fall in younger age cohorts while employment in older age groups has grown. The largest positive contribution to employment was among the 45 to 54-year-olds, which increased by 24,100 or 3.5% to 686,100. This is followed by those aged 55 to 64, who increased 14,700 or 3.4% to 449,600. The increase in this age group was driven in particular by a 5.5% increase among the 60 to 64-year-olds. The largest decline was among those aged 35 to 44 years. That was down 11,700 or 1.7% to 690,000. The decline here was driven by females in this age group, down 13,700. Youths, those aged 15 to 24, declined 4,200 or 1.3% to 321,100. Among youths those aged 20 to 24 were down 2.2%, while those aged 15 to 19 increased 0.7%. The annual change in full-time and part-time employment is shown in this slide. The number of full-time workers increased by 13,500 or 0.6% to almost 2.25 million in Q2 2026. However, while there was a smaller increase of 7,600 part-time workers in Q2 to 589,600, it was the largest increase in percentage terms of 1.3%. The chart in this slide shows the annual change in employment by the new NACE Rev 2.1 economic classification. The most jobs added in the year were in education, up 14,200 or 5.9% to 256,900. This is followed by transportation and storage, up 9,800 or 7.9% to 134,000, and industry, up 9,200 or 2.6% to 356,000. The largest decline was in the professional, scientific and technical activities, down 17,100 or 8.2% to 189,800. There was also a decline in wholesale and retail trade, down 9,300 or 3.1%, and agriculture, forestry and fishing, down 3,900. Other notable sectors include the construction sector, which increased 1,400 or 0.8%, and information and communication, down 2,700 or 1.5%. The chart here shows employed persons by their working location for Q2 2026 and the previous year. In Q2 2026, 529,800 people worked usually from home. That's defined as at least 50% of their days worked in the previous 4 weeks, down 25,700 or 4.6% since Q2 2025. A further 460,800 were working from home sometimes, up 3,200 from last year, while those that never worked from home increased 43,800 to more than 1.8 million from last year. Turning now to unemployment, and using the standard ILO criteria, the number of persons aged 15 to 74 years who were unemployed in Q2 stood at 151,000, up 7.2% on last year. The unemployment rate, shown on the chart, was 5.1%, an increase of 0.3 percentage points relative to a year ago. The unemployment rates for males was unchanged at 5.0%, while the female unemployment rate increased 0.7 percentage points to 5.2%. While the unadjusted unemployment rate increased on the year, there was a slight quarter-on-quarter decline in the seasonally adjusted unemployment rate, down 0.1 percentage points to 4.9%. The slide here shows a change in unemployment by age groups, and it shows that similar to employment, there has been a fall in younger age cohorts, while unemployment in older age groups has grown. The largest contribution to unemployment was among the 55 to 64-year-olds, which increased by 6,900 or 54.8% to 19,500. This is followed by those aged 45 to 54, who increased 4,500 or 25.3% to 22,300. The largest decline was among those aged 25 to 34 years, that was down 3,000 or 8.5% to 31,800. While there was a decline in youth unemployment of 700, driven by those aged 15 to 19, which declined 1,700. The increases in unemployment among older age cohorts contributed to a rise in the unemployment rate of 5.1%, while the youth unemployment remained unchanged at 13.2%. The unemployment rate and percentage point change in the unemployment rate by NUTS 3 region are shown here. The Midlands region reported the highest unemployment rate at 5.8%. However, this is down 0.8 percentage points on last year. This was followed by Dublin with 5.7%, that's up 0.6 percentage points, while the Border region was 5.6%, that's up 1.4 percentage points, the largest increase among the regions. The chart here shows unemployment by the duration of unemployment for the last 4 years. 38,900 people were classified as long-term unemployed, that is unemployed for 12 months or longer, up 22.6% compared with 2025. And this accounted for 26.6% of all unemployed people, compared with 23.2% the previous year. The long-term unemployment rate for those aged 15 to 74 rose 0.2 percentage points to 1.3% in quarter 2. Turning attention now to the overall labour force, and the ILO defined labour force, comprised of all persons aged 15 and over who are classified as either employed or unemployed, was estimated to be almost 2.99 million in Q2. That's up 1.1% on a year ago. The estimated participation rate for Q2, shown on the chart, was 66%, down 0.4 percentage points from 2025. The participation rate was down 1.7 percentage points to 52.1% for youths, down 1.3 percentage points to 87.4% for 25 to 34-year-olds, and down 0.4 percentage points to 88.3% for 35 to 44-year-olds. It increased 1.8 percentage points to 55 to 64-year-olds to 72.9%, while the 45 to 54-year-olds increased 1.2 percentage points to 88.6%. The seasonally adjusted participation rate was 65.7%. That's up 0.2 percentage points from the previous quarter. In terms of the change in the labour force, it increased by 31,300 to 2,990,200 in Q2. Amongst that change, there was a positive demographic effect of 37,000 and a negative participation effect of 5,700 over the year. There was an increase of 19,600 females in the labour force and 11,700 males, and an increase of 1.4% and 0.7% respectively. The change in the labour force by citizenship is shown in this slide. There was an increase of 21,700 citizens from the rest of the world in the labour force since Q2 2025, an increase of 7.3% to 320,000. Among the increase from the rest of the world, 19,000 were in employment and 2,700 were classified as unemployed. EU citizens increased 7,000 or 2.5% to 282,500, while Irish citizens increased by 3,600 or 0.2% to more than 2.3 million. Among the change, there was a decline of 100 Irish citizens in employment, while there was an increase of 3,700 classified as unemployed. Turning now to those who were not in the labour force, the estimated number of people who are classified as not in the labour force was 1,543,000. That's up 43,400 or 2.9% on the previous year. Those that do not want a job increased by 35,900 or 3.9% to 964,000. Those inactive and over 75 increased 4.2% to 379,600, while those that want a job but are not available and not actively seeking declined 0.6% to 88,800. And the NEET rate, that is the percentage of 15 to 24-year-olds who are not in employment, education or training, was 6.5%, an increase of 0.6 percentage points on last year. Labour market slack, which comprises unemployed, part-time underemployed and a potential additional labour force, is shown in this slide here for Q2 2026 and the previous year. The total for labour market slack in Q2 was 415,400, an increase of 0.7% on the same quarter last year. The increases were seen among the unemployed, increasing 10,100 or 7.2%, while part-time underemployed remained relatively stable under 160,000. The potential additional labour force, that is people who would like to work but are either available but are not actively seeking work, or are seeking work but are not immediately available to begin, was 110,600, a decrease of 7,400 or 6.3% compared with a year ago. And so in summary, the employment rate decreased by 0.4 percentage points to 74.3%, despite the overall rise in the employment of 0.8% to more than 2.8 million. The growth in employment was seen among older age cohorts and those from the rest of the world. There was a growth in education, transportation storage, as well as the industry sector, while there was a decline in professional, scientific and technical activities. For unemployment, we have seen an increase of 7.2% to 151,000, and this gave rise to an increase in the unemployment rate to 5.1%. This is driven by older age groups and females. The annual growth in the labour force was 1.1%. This was again driven by older age groups. However, the participation rate dropped 0.4 percentage points to 66.0%, as those not in the labour force increased 2.9%. Now, that concludes the results presentation for the Labour Force Survey for Q2 2026. The full results are now available on our website, cso.ie. The LFS quarterly results for Q3 2026 are scheduled for publication in November. Thanks for watching.